In January of 1993, John Wendt decided to build a layout. He reviewed ads in Classic Toy Trains and Model Railroader and sent out 3 letters. 1 week later, he received a call from Don Danuser of Model Railroad Custom Benchwork in Hood, Virginia.
He says, here's how we go about it. He says, I make arrangements with my travel agent, and I'll give you her number. And when I get the arrangements made, I'll leave from Dulles Airport and I'll fly into O'Hare. You will call her then and give her your credit card so that you can pay for my trip up there. I'll come to your house. I will measure where the layout is to go. I will take pictures of where it's to go. I will measure your doorways, your entranceways, your stairways, all the doorways and hallways leading to where the layout's going to go. Since it is an attic layout and the stairway came up in the middle of the layout, it worked very well in making a decision because you couldn't decide on too many different things.
October 18th was the approximate date for final delivery.
I got home about 3 o'clock that afternoon and was waiting for some kind of delivery vehicle. He told me roughly what it would be. Well, I saw a great big pickup coming down the street pulling what looked to me like a gigantic horse trailer. And I knew that had to be him, so I rushed around, got in the house, and opened my gate to my driveway so that he could pull in.
Don Danuser was driving the truck. The next morning, Don and John picked up his partner, Vernon Peachy, from O'Hare Airport in Chicago.
And immediately they started unloading this gigantic trailer. They open the back door of the trailer, and here's all the layout in different pieces. They pull it out, and they're spreading all this all over my lawn. It was quite a sight because I live right next door to a little shopping center, and people driving in and out of there wondering what in the world is going on here. It really looked funny.
L-frames and outside scenery were taken from the front yard up into the attic.
Well, they got most of the things upstairs that went around the outside of the wall. Then the rest of the stuff just came in and sat in various rooms in the house. And believe me, it was all over the place. And fortunately, not being married, no one was going to say anything to me about, hey, what's this doing in here?
By the second day, the layout sections were in place.
Track is all on it except for the sections when they put them together, so they have to put in the pieces to make it work. Check out all the electricity, which is done modularly, snap all the connections together, and then run test trains, test engines, make sure everything works. And within about 3 days, they were in and out of here and gone. I really wanted to see a layout that I could run my trains on, and also to have some semblance of realism to it. I wanted to incorporate at least some realism with it rather than have it too toy trainish looking. I have predominantly Lionel, but some of the newer Weaver trains, Weaver engines are very realistic. I have several of those. Williams, I have some Williams. The Weaver engine that I purchased basically because it's just much more realistic is the Weaver GG1. It's scale and size, it has the electronic sounds, and is a real good performing engine, as of course are the Lionel, but the Lionel are not the scale.
John likes any train with Pennsylvania markings. While growing up, his grandparents' home was adjacent to the Pennsylvania Railroad Depot in Winamac, Indiana.
My layout has 2 major loops, one an upper loop, one a lower loop. It has a capability to reversing the trains on loops that go across bridges and a little swamp-like area. It also has a yard where I can, a rail yard where you can park several trains and switch trains on and off of them. On the north end of it, I have a roundhouse which houses several engines, so I can run engines in and out of the roundhouse to make a switch with some of the existing trains that are already on the track. I have a right-of-way transformer, specially built to handle the new, bigger type engines, and the advantage to that is that from a much lower control, you can operate a much slower and gradually increase the speed. It doesn't just come on in an instant and want to take off at a fairly fast speed. So it's very effective, particularly when you need to, it has a separate switch on there for each track for changing to a bell sound or to the whistle sound. And that's built right into the transformer, so I don't have to have a lot of extra switches to do that. One of the advantages of the newer items on the market today is, of course, the advance in electronics and computerization, the small computer chips that add rail sounds, chug sounds, steam sounds. That adds a lot of realism as the train is running, in addition to just the clickety-clack noise that the old-fashioned, quote, Lionel trains did. Other things that I see that have been, that I like have been the right-of-way crossing signals, which are scale in size. They more adequately reflect what I would rather see on the layout. Lionel traffic control items I always felt were a little large. They were always way too large, way out of scale. And so I stuck with the ones that are more scale in size. Most of the problems that I have on my layout are probably derailments, and those are generally operator caused. Something I left a switch open, or other things that happen may be electrical, but generally that's probably a problem that I've caused also. So the layout itself, the problems that happen on it are not because of the construction or anything. It's usually something that I do. Runs real well. I have virtually no problems at all.
1648 departing, 1648 clear.
John uses a computer program for engine maintenance. He identifies the purchase date or operating start date for each engine and lubricates them once a year or when needed.
The only other things that I do is, maintenance-wise, is if I start hearing a squeak or something, which are generally wheel squeaks or something, I'll jump on those right away. I found in the hardware stores a small plastic bottle with a little narrow needle-like tip on it that they use to blend epoxy together in very small amounts, and that makes an excellent oiler because you can't get a drop out of it unless you get it, squeeze it, and you can get that needle point right down on the site, particularly small axles inside the little operating mechanisms on the wheel drives of the engine and so on, to eliminate squeaks with just one little drop.
In 1948, at age 8, John received his first Lionel train. And because of this long association, he favors Lionel today.
Particularly when it comes to the variety of stuff. You know, a lot of companies, they'll make an engine, or they're making passenger cars, or they'll make some scale cars, but they don't have the overall variety that Lionel keeps coming out with. And yeah, they're not making brass cars either, but the quality and the diversity of Lionel is still pretty darn good.
Competition between manufacturers benefits everyone.
It's good for the collector or the person such as myself who is looking for probably a little bit better quality and higher price, more scale, realistic looking items. That's where the competition seems to be right now. I don't know that it's benefiting the beginner at this point. I do appreciate seeing people like K-Line and Lionel trying to get out some lower priced items, which would get families interested in a lower price segment of the collecting market. My belief about collecting trains is I want to be able to run the trains. I don't buy a train or look for a train just because I want to put it on the shelf. You know, I'll buy a brand new one. People will say, hey, don't ever take it out of the box. That's wrong. I take it out of the box and I run it. I mean, part of the enjoyment to me is going to be in my lifetime, not when I pass on and somebody else thinks they're going to get the money out of the collection. I mean, that's not what's going to happen. I'm going to get some enjoyment out of that before then.
John Wendt's layout displays the latest in model railroading technology. It features detailed operation, gorgeous scenery beautifully made to scale, and dynamic buildings that capture the look of the 50s and 60s. Building a layout meticulous in every detail is not an easy task.
If I were going to advise somebody on building a layout, the first thing I'd ask them is, do you really want to build the layout yourself? Do you have the expertise? Do you have the knowledge? Do you really want to build it? Is that your goal, to build a layout, or is your goal to run the trains? Because to me, it's a pretty complicated process if you want a decent layout. With all the different electronics and things that are available today, my first thing would get them to think about what is their goal.
John has high praise for Model Railroad Custom Benchwork.
I felt that they did as good a job as could possibly be done. I am so satisfied with what occurred because I have to look at how long would it have been before I'd have had this layout? I'd still be running a train in a circle on the floor. And this gave me a completed layout, one I can be proud of, one I can already run my trains in, and I don't have to worry about where am I going to run these engines that I'm going to buy and continue to add to my collection. I'd recommend them to do anybody's layout that would ever call me because they were that easy to work with. You just have to make a commitment. If you're going to do this, you got to make a commitment that, hey, this is what I'm going to do. They're going to tell you roughly what it's going to cost, and you got to be willing to pay the freight.
So the game is still on.
You bet it is.
Certainly for this man.
175 yards. Smooth little 6-iron. He's got it started just right of the flag.
Lands in the center of the green, settled down right there, about 5 feet from the hole.
Ed Dougherty could still win his first PGA Tour title.
Ed Dougherty is a PGA Tour player, among the top 125 golfers in the United States. His best finish came in 1990 when he tied for first place at the Greater Milwaukee Open. Dougherty's collection of Postwar Lionel trains and display layouts is extraordinary. He started early.
I was born in 1947 in November, and I had a train set already purchased for me that Santa Claus brought me a month and a half later.
Ed has nearly every train Lionel made in the post-war era.
I have a 20 by 30 two-story building that houses my collection. The upper floor is nothing but trains of the post-war era from 1946 through 1969. And then downstairs, I have a collection of Lionel dealer displays.
Dougherty exchanges dealer displays with friend Ed Holderly of St. Louis.
At last count, we had something like 66 of them, so we're pretty strong in the dealer displays. If somebody asks me, what do I collect, I tell them dealer displays as opposed to trains. Everything that I have here, I can document it via a dealer catalog, or I have the original box that has the Lionel Corporation stamp on it and their display number.
When we first walk in and see the collection, the displays are overwhelming.
This poster that's on this wall here is the Lionel display number D145, and it's from 1954. Now, I have advanced dealer catalog. I have the dealer catalog of 1954, and it doesn't show this in it. It goes up to display number D144. But I also have the original box that this came in, and on the box it has Lionel display number D145.
The box also has a Union label stamp that shows 1954.
So that's how I documented that date.
Ed refers to Lionel display D52 as the Lazy Susan display.
That display mainly shows the use of magnet traction, which came out in 1950. It was a new selling technique in 1950, but for 1951 they showed it in that display. The engine stands still and the Lazy Susan underneath it spins around, and it's a pretty neat item. It's one of my favorites. There's 5 poster displays. They came out in 1947. It had a 726 engine on it. I have a 1952 one with the, I call it the kids display, a big red display with all the kids. The 1957 is upstairs with the backdrop of the 57 catalog. Really came out in 1958. And the 1962 family scene shows the father and son playing. I'm missing one display. I'm missing the 1949 one that's a GG1. I'm pretty lucky. I take these posters and I got enough room to display them, and they're pretty neat. I enjoy looking at them.
This 1960 5x9 Super O layout is display D291.
It's a 3-train operation. It's 2 on the lower level, 1 on the top level. It has a lot of operating accessories. It has the Bosco car on it. It has the White Horse car, the 3366. Has the 192 control tower, the 264 forklift, 175 rocket launcher. Has a beacon. It has the floodlight tower. It's amazing what Lionel would condense in a 5x9 area. It's a showpiece of my collection because it's the first thing you see when you walk into my train room.
Dougherty's friend Chip Childs has a train store in Northampton, Massachusetts, which Ed visits each year when he plays golf in New England. Ed asked if he could purchase Chip's Ferris wheel display D187.
He said, Ed, I'm using it. He says, the only way you're going to get that is if you finish first in a tournament. Well, in 1990, I finished first in the Greater Milwaukee Open, but I ended up losing in a playoff. So the very next day, I called Chip up and I said, when do I get my display? And he said, what are you talking about? I said, you told me if I finished first in the tournament, I got that Ferris wheel display. He said, well, you didn't finish first. I said, yeah, I finished first. I just didn't win it. I lost in the playoff. And he said, all right, Ed. He says, come on up. He says, it's yours. But he said, don't you ever get rid of it. So that's that's a display that I display very proudly. It's a friend of mine who did me a big favor, and it's a very good display. I have a 1955 Lionel display number D147, which again is a 5x9 Lionel layout of O-gauge trains. This is a 2-train operation. The freight train runs around the outer limits of the track through a mountain, and the inner train is a figure 8, which is unique because it was right around when Lionel put out the trestle sets. But if you notice on that layout, there's no trestles. It's a ramp. It looks like almost a car ramp, a ski ramp. And again, that has a lot of operational factors on it.
These 1950 selling displays showed every piece of track Lionel had available in O and O27 gauge.
Lionel, I think, was way far ahead of himself in selling techniques. They set the trend in the 50s, I believe, in how to sell trains. I have the 2 animated stand-up displays that Lionel made. One in 1950, they made the Engineer, which showed the engineer with a lantern, and they showed the Santa Fe F3 and a little boy at his feet. You know, the Engineer is a little bit larger than life. And then 10 years later, they made the Lion with the lantern, which is a copy of the Engineer. The Lion was their logo at the time. They're just neat. They're very brittle, and they're stand-up displays that used to be countertop displays.
Dougherty's train collection is beautifully displayed and contains some rare pieces. Joe Alcazini explains.
In the December 1948 issue of Science Illustrated, a very rare yellow painted dump car is shown. Only 3 are known to exist. It has one of these truly scarce yellow dump cars. Collectors covet decaled pre-production samples that were used for catalog illustrations, shown at Toy Fair, or as salesman samples. It has 2 unique decaled items. The 6445 Fort Knox gold bullion car was painted over an aquarium car body and decaled with red graphics.
Inside here, the gold bars are made out of wood. The normal production was done on a plastic mold. You can see the spacing for the much more detailed work.
Ed has a 53 Rio Grande snowplow with decaled letters.
Now this is probably one of the poorer condition items I have in my train collection, but this is also something special.
What makes it special is it has been painted over a blue number 51 U.S. Navy switcher. It's probably one of the first Rio Grande snowplows ever made.
What we have here is like the pride of my collection. I have this prominently displayed upstairs on the 1953 layout.
The normal run of the 628 Northern Pacific 44-tonner was heat stamped over black plastic. This truly rare one-of-a-kind is painted silver and stamped with Northern Pacific graphics.
This train engine here cost me the price of a whole collection because I didn't have a chance to buy it individually. I had to buy the whole train collection, which I did just to get it.
You may be surprised to hear the driving force behind Ed's trains.
My mom is the driving force probably behind my trains. She bought my first train set before I was born. My mother came from a large family with a couple brothers and sisters, and I think she always enjoyed the trains that her brothers had.
Ed set up his first train when he was 7 years old.
I can still see myself, instead of doing homework in grade school, I used to take that Lionel catalog and just daydream, just wishing I had the ability, or my family had the ability to buy me what I needed, or what I wanted, not needed. I certainly didn't need anything. And when Christmas time came, I only got trains at Christmas. You know, Santa Claus used to bring the trains. You know, if you got one car or two cars, you were in hog heaven.
Ed describes his typical week on the PGA Tour.
Well, I usually arrive into town that Monday or Monday evening. Tuesday, you go out to the golf course and play all day, whether you're practice, putting, chipping, playing, familiarizing yourself with the golf course. Wednesday, I always took off. That was my train hunting day. No matter what town I was, Tuesday night, I used to look in the yellow pages and hunt down the local hobby shops. Through the years I've been on tour so long, I just have my normal stops when I go into town. Chicago's always been a good stop for me. The Northeast, any town or any area that basically has cellars is usually a good train buy in town, because, you know, Florida, they didn't have basements or any place to put them. Thursday through Sunday was the tournament day, and then we just repeated that routine the next week. If you have an interest in trains, you really like it, just buy something that you really like, because everything that happened here, I bought just because I like trains. I never bought trains for the value of them. I never bought trains on the speculation that, hey, these things are going to be valuable one day. If the market falls out tomorrow, I'll still come out here in this room and have as much enjoyment as I do today. I think my golfing supports my train collecting. I know I'm not going to play golf all my life. I'm hoping to have these trains all my life.
Ed traded golf lessons for this custom-made sign.
This is it. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than this. I enjoy trains. Chances are, if I go out, I'm not going to pick up something I don't have, but there's always that one possibility that gets your heart pumping and the adrenaline flowing. Lionel, to me, is the Cadillac of toy trains. If I think of cars, I think of Cadillac. If I think of toy trains, I think of Lionel. You always get a good story when you mention the word Lionel.
To learn more about Ed Dougherty's collection, pick up the summer 1989 and January 1993 issues of Classic Toy Trains. By the way, Ed also collects Gottlieb pinball machines. Dave Simon has been a collector and operator for 56 years.
I was born in New York City, and I got started in the hobby by my father in 1938 when I was 5 years old with a Lionel train set called the City of Denver that was purchased on sale at Christmas from Macy's.
His 12.5 by 17-foot layout is representative of eastern anthracite areas. His goal was to take 3-rail toy trains and put them into a scale-like setting. 2 trains operate on 2 independent loops, and a 3rd loop is used for yard connecting. 30 switches are incorporated in the track plan, all Lionel.
Lionel switches are easy to install, reliable, and provide the non-derailing feature, which is extremely important in a layout when it starts to get this large.
14-gauge wire is used to prevent voltage dropping. Smaller wire is used when accessories are closer to the controls. This realistic mountain is made of paper mache, screen wire, wooden blocks, and plaster.
And nature is not perfect, man is not perfect, and therefore we get right into a nice looking piece of scenery just by spraying browns and greens and grays and then planting model trees. In scenery, it's really is Mother Nature. It's not a perfection factor. Copy what you see, use the simplest materials, and do not be afraid to redo and undo. By that, I mean, if you make a mistake, take it out. Start again. Till you feel, to your eye and to your mind's eye, that you visually accomplished what you wanted to accomplish.
Buildings are cut out and pasted on the wall.
Being limited in size, most model railroaders have to figure some way to impart space and distance without having the space and distance. Therefore, by using your wall, you can cut out buildings, as long as they're in proportion, O-scale buildings, and the larger ones up front or the smaller ones further in the back can impart space. Model railroading, being what it is, gives you the greatest opportunity, be it what we call HO scale model railroading, O-gauge scale model railroading, or Lionel scale model railroading, the ability to become a carpenter, an electrician, an artist, and to live these fantasies of trains, and trains having the biggest meaning in my life, as far as I am concerned, being brought up and raised with trains all the time. In other words, when I went to see my grandparents out of the city, there were the trains, big as life. And they were not subways, which I used to think you could take a subway to go to California. I found out what a steam locomotive was, which was my biggest thrill at that time. And from then on, that love of trains enters into your life, and it really never goes away. You've now left the real world. You're now in your own world. You are in command. You're the CEO. You're the engineer. You're the yardman. You're the brakeman. You're the one that determines what gets what and what industry gets what and how the shipments go. It's a wonderful escape. The city of Denver was the beginning of Lionel's entrance into manufacturing scale-looking models. These trains represented the real train. Then you'll see right after the war, as much thought went in, and I'm sure the variations on how much space we have, how can we keep these trains on a tight curve. We foreshortened a lot of this, but we had to use the die-cast engine that looked like the die-cast engine. Therefore, you see 224, you see 726. These are beautiful models of die-cast locomotives representing the steam locomotive, and entered Lionel into the scale, semi-scale, we'll say, approach to the model railroading. To me, as I was entering that age of 10, 11, 12, realism of the train became more important than just the train itself. So there was this goal to get to the train in a realistic form in an operation. And if we go back to Joshua Lionel back in 1930s, He knew that that was the direction to go with the die-cast engines, no longer the tin plate effect.
Simon describes the dream train.
That train is pulled by what I call a scale L3 482 locomotive that is built to scale in the same situation as the Hudson. It is pulling 700 cars, which are, they say, semi-scale, modified scale. They look realistic. They fall right into my realistic effect. And when you put it behind this locomotive with its caboose, you have an ideal, beautiful-looking Lionel train set, which I feel was the ultimate dream of Joshua Lionel in the 30s. Now, I've been in HO scale, I've manufactured trains, and I've built many a layout. And I always put it on paper first. Sometimes exactly as it would fit on the paper, and knowing that as we go along building our layouts, we can modify to make changes that make us happy. The point here in model railroading is to capture in the essence not only the nostalgia in the background, but that ever-loving train factor, the love of trains, as we say, the romance of model railroading. It imparts relaxation, good memories, and a great deal of joy. You have people that are divided into many fields, those that like the artistry, those that like the trains, those that like running the railroads as a business. But the faces on these children are amazed when they see these trains. That is the whole enjoyment of bringing people down, is to watch the faces. They really enjoy it. The love of trains is there. Real railroading is changing. We're not seeing the trains as we did in our youth, but these models can bring back memories or impart great enjoyment for the future. The object is to get as many people interested. I always say, give me a boy with a hobby, I'll give you a successful man.
Lynn, Dave's wife, supports his passion for toy trains.
She loves the trains from the point of view that I enjoy it. And as long as I'm happy, she's happy with it. And yes, sometimes I disappear into the basement and that subterranean area where they might as well throw my food down there and tell me, hey, you've been down there for 3 days, it's time to get up. She understands my love, not only for herself, but for the trains. Trains have been a part of my life. I am now at this stage of life. They will always be a part of my life. So it's well tolerated. It's just that it's not the other woman. It's trains. I think Lionel has a steep competition coming now. What Mike's Train House gives the model railroader is great value, great quality, and gives me everything I really want in a model railroad locomotive. Detail, running ability, scale fidelity. Lionel was doing that, and I was willing to say that as long as the quality of Lionel maintained itself, it may be worth the extra few dollars for the name Lionel. But in true great value, Mike's Train House is really giving Lionel a very good run for the money. And that has to be thought out at Lionel. If I'm getting top quality and I'm spending less money and I'm really satisfied with the product, I will buy the product that gives me that. This is the American competitive situation. The beautiful die-cast locomotives that Mike's Train House is coming out with, I felt should be the realm of Lionel. Lionel should have not have ended anything brass. It is not their market, it is not their forte. The Challenger, the Pacific, and there should be a Pennsylvania K4, let me add one model that should be made in die-cast, beautiful scale running, should have been the home of Lionel. But with the change towards the younger group, this opened the market for Mike's Train House. And Mike's Train House will do very well as long as he maintains this quality.
Simon believes the greatest challenge in the hobby is developing future model railroaders. As Lionel moves in this direction, it has to maintain a delicate balance in choosing products to manufacture.
The balance is extremely important. I feel they're not keeping the balance. They cannot shift one way and just sacrifice the other end. The people that support this hobby are in my age group, and we'll take it from ages 40 on forever, hopefully. And these are the key mainstays in the hobby. All the others are trying to build a future market with children. So if we have 100 children come in, we'll be happy if we get 2 or 3 serious model railroaders. Your serious model railroaders, your major market, are the fellas like myself who are established with our love for trains, who want these models, and will work to get these models, and will build around these models. Do not sacrifice that group at all. What you can't do, what Lionel likes to do, is take the L3 Mohawk. The L3 Mohawk is an L3 Mohawk, and it has very few variations on other roads. But from an economical point of view, and you can understand this, we can make it a Texas and Pacific Mountain. It's the same engine in a different paint scheme. However, where you do run into trouble as a manufacturer, and it should be forethought, is taking something like the S2, which is uniquely Pennsylvania, cannot be fabricated any other road or even imply any other road unless it's in a fantasy situation. Therefore, in a fantasy situation, you can paint the S2 locomotive anything you want. Same locomotive, different paint. That would answer the question of what we do with the dies to amortize the cost of the dies. But when you pick an engine like the S2, you're pretty well stuck that the S2 is an S2, and paint will not change the S2. We have intelligent buyers out there, real intelligent buyers, and they're studying their railroad. We have great publications by Kalmbach, we have great publications by Greenberg. We have railroad books galore. People are learning. They know their trains, they affiliate with their railroads that make them comfortable, that they enjoy. The key is you got to feel what the market is, and you have to do it within yourself and what you feel for somebody else and see the buying trends. There is no absolute guarantee that you can make a model and it will sell. There are roads that have always been popular, Pennsylvania, New York Central, Santa Fe. These roads generally will sell because they have the greatest following over a period of years. However, for Mike's Train House, they did excellent with the Challenger because there was a need for an articulated locomotive in die cast. They are doing an excellent job in the USRA selection because this is a locomotive you can paint many, many different colors and still be accurate. On the other hand, Lionel has picked some like the S2, which is just a one-road locomotive. These are the things that have to be researched real carefully, and the people on your staff should be knowledgeable model railroaders, plus good market men. I think Lionel should return to the philosophy that Mr. Kuhn said in the 1990 catalog, in the 1989 catalog. We will continue to bring you scale models along with the other models at reasonable value. They've dropped back to more of Thomas the Tank Engine type situation. That's nice, but you forgot my market. My feeling on the trains, and it's never really changed, is they have to be run for enjoyment. There is nothing like the sound of steam, or the smoke coming out of the smokestack, or the sound of the clicky-clack of the wheels. I can enjoy to myself a collection. And yes, as part of model railroading, collection is automatically built in. So we are all collectors when we're in the model railroad field. And therefore, I really don't make a big distinction between collecting and running, because to me they're one and the same, except there is a certain grouping here that likes to purvey money from it. Well, for the enjoyment of railroading, there's no price on my enjoyment of railroading. No price whatsoever.